This section of the industry training series is going to be focused on the DP's role in the pre-production side of filmmaking. The DP's main role in pre-production is to eliminate as many variables as possible so that once set rolls around, things are as predictable as possible. And this starts with using the script to create a shot list. Now, a shot list is just basically taking and breaking apart all of the moments of the script into the shots that you're going to shoot once you actually reach set time. The first thing you're going to want to do is go through your script, and you're going to want to break it into its scenes. So you're going to assign each scene a number, and then from there, once you have your scenes blocked out, you can go scene 1, shot A, and then shot A would be your first shot of that scene. And then you just work through, write out like what lens choices you're going to be using, any specific camera information, like are you going to be on a tripod, a dolly, some sort of Steadicam. Those are all things you're going to want to note inside of your shot list. A good rule of thumb is also to indicate on your shot list if there's any shot in particular that's going to be very, let's say, like involve a really heavy amount of set time. That's something that your AD is going to really appreciate when they go to take your shot list and turn it into a script. Things are inevitably going to change on set, but it's just important that you plan ahead of time thoroughly, but still be flexible once you're on set, knowing that like logistical and locational factors are going to maybe make some of your ideas not possible, and you just have to be able to sort of adapt to, at the end of the day, make your day. Now, as I mentioned in the previous section, some directors will want to be present for the entire shot listing process, and some will want nothing to do with it and just sort of like send you to do your thing, and that's totally cool too. It's sort of about gauging where that relationship is going to lie. Now, it's also very, very important as you're starting to piece together your shot list to visit your locations, or at least know what they're going to entail. So you're going to want to take inventory of where your electrical outlets are, physical limits like ceiling height, and other safety things you're going to want to take care of too, just to make sure that you're making your lighting choices that are both practical and story driven. Next, I want to talk a little bit about cameras because as a DP, your camera is your primary tool. And it's your job to know your camera inside and out before you arrive on set. A lot of times you will be choosing your camera, so it's important to understand how a camera is going to behave in different shooting environments. Higher end cinema cameras, a lot of the times you can't really go wrong with, but if you're looking sort of on like the mid-range sort of systems, you kind of have to make compromises and know what you're going to need from your camera in order to best make your day. I also would like to talk a little bit about how digital sensors work. Every camera, be it your like your cell phone camera, a cinema camera, a point and shoot, has a sensor inside of it. And what that sensor does is, and this is a very big simplification, but it's exposed to light, and then it has to translate that light information into packages that can then be encoded onto your SD card or SSD or whatever you're recording to. What it does is it takes all of this raw information and combines it into two packages, your gamma and your gamut. So your gamma is how your camera interprets light information. So everything from pitch black to pure clipped white is what your gamma is going to take care of. And choosing your gamma is super important. You've probably heard of shooting log before. Log is a type of gamma. It's a type of acquisitional gamma. And I'll talk a little bit later about when to shoot log, when not to shoot log. But that is basically, again, how your camera interprets light information. Your gamut, on the other hand, is how your camera interprets and packages color information, also called a color space. I like to think of gamuts like buckets. You have like smaller gamuts that can hold only a little bit of color before they sort of spill out and clip. And then you have larger gamuts like Rec 2020 or P3 that can hold a ton of color. Now, all TVs, phones, and computers and projectors are designed to display content that exists in specific delivery color spaces. Rec 709 is probably the most popular and the standard for most TVs and computers. Every camera does have a Rec 709 mode in it. It's usually called like standard, or in Sony, I believe it's called BT 709. And that's going to be the color space that you're going to want to choose in your camera if you know that your footage is not going to see a colorist. So if you know that your post-production either has a really quick turnaround time, or you know that your footage is not going to see a colorist, you're going to want to shoot in Rec 709 so that it looks as great as possible straight out of camera without any post-processing. Rec 709 would be what is considered a delivery color space, or a delivery gamma and gamut, because it is designed to go straight from the camera to a display and look great. Now, on the other hand, there are acquisition gammas and gamuts. And these are not meant to be viewed on a display. These gammas and gamuts are designed to just capture as much information as possible off the sensor to then be later expanded and transformed by a colorist. So this is where log comes in. Something that I see a lot that can really easily be avoided is, let's say you shot your film on log, it goes through post-production and your film is completed, it's up on the internet, it's up on Vimeo, you're sending it off to film festivals, and it's still in log. But log is a acquisition color space. That's why when you look at log footage that hasn't been graded, it looks all compressed and it looks all flat. And that's because that log curve needs to be corrected. So it's important to know, like, if your post-process is not going to include a colorist, just don't shoot log. It doesn't mean you're less professional, it doesn't mean you're less like of a pro, it's just you have to know what your post-production workflow is going to look like and make that call in camera so that you're making your post job much easier. The way you shoot in log in Rec. 709 does sort of dictate your camera decisions and your exposure decisions. Because if you're shooting in Rec. 709, things are going to look in camera close to what they're going to look like on the screen. So you're going to want to light and you're going to want to expose to make sure that it looks exactly in camera the way you want it to. Whereas if you're shooting in log, for instance, you have a little bit more flexibility. You can really work with your exposure to instead capture as much information as you can so that your colorist has as much as they possibly can to work with later. So again, it just sort of changes your shooting style, and these are all considerations that you need to look at prior to arriving on.